Vedantic philosophy describes the mind as a continuous thought flow. When at peace, it is like a quiet stream moving gently through a garden. But water rarely stays completely still. When the volume of thoughts increases and starts to rush, the gentle stream becomes a flood. The faster it moves, the harder it is to control. Much of this turbulence comes from the outside. We face a constant, heavy barrage of external demands, temptations, and stress that whip up the water. Teachers refer to these external distractions as sense objects. These are simply the things in the world that pull at our attention, the sights, the sounds, and the desires that grab hold of our senses and agitate us. Because we live in a busy world, these sense objects are everywhere. There is no empty space in the universe where we can exist entirely free of them. If allowed to blow through our garden unchecked, they will dictate the weather of our minds. We cannot pack up and run away from the presence of everyday life. Modern existence means interacting with a noisy, demanding environment. The text compares these unchecked distractions to a literal poison. When we let every external agitation enter our mind without a filter, it destroys our mental tranquility and sickens the soil of our thoughts. Since we are forced to live in a world surrounded by these potentially toxic inputs, we must develop a deliberate system to handle them. We need a way to interact with our surroundings without letting them infect us. We actually have a built-in defense mechanism. We have the conscious ability to recognize harmful inputs and actively reject them before they take root. This process of guarding the gate, blocking thorny distractions, is the Vedantic concept of Dama, or sense control. Think of this as a selective filter. You handle daily necessities with caution, opening the gate for what you need, while the mesh catches toxicity before it enters. The moment you stop allowing every stray comment or stressor to wash over you, the rushing floodwaters of the mind immediately begin to slow down and quiet. Constructing this conscious boundary is the crucial first step. You have to secure your internal environment from the storms raging on the outside. But what if you took this to the absolute limit? What if you built a wall so thick that you isolated yourself entirely? Imagine retreating to the ultimate extreme. You leave society behind, moving to a solitary cave in the Himalayas, hundreds of miles away from civilization. The teacher offers a very clear warning about this approach. Even if you hide yourself in a completely empty void, total peace is not guaranteed. Here is the paradox. The human mind has its own inherent restlessness. Even inside an empty cave, your mind can agitate itself purely through imagination. A heavy gate only succeeds in keeping the external weeds out. It does nothing to stop your mind's own negative patterns from sprouting up from within the dirt. Because the mind can agitate itself, defense is only half the battle. The mind must be re-educated and constantly guarded from the inside out. To crowd out those persistent internal weeds, we have to actively plant and cultivate healthier values of life. The text outlines 5 specific, noble disciplines we need to grow: forgiveness, straightforwardness, kindness, cheerfulness, and truth. The text describes these values as nectar for the spirit. They provide the essential nourishment that allows a quiet mind to flourish. Consider this in practice. Holding on to revenge brings boiling disturbances to our thoughts, but the moment we forgive, we neutralize that agitation. Similarly, crooked behavior creates constant tension. Choosing straightforwardness straightens out those knots, allowing the mind to relax. When we actively cultivate kindness and cheerfulness, we bring a lasting poise to a mind that would otherwise be noisy and boisterous. Among these 5 values, there is one unavoidable requirement for any seeker: truthfulness, defined as intellectual honesty. Dishonesty is exhausting. When you think one way, feel differently in your heart, and ultimately act against your own convictions, you create intense internal friction. This inner dishonesty creates a deep fracture. When you act against your own convictions, your inner personality begins to break down and fail. Deep meditation and spiritual growth require an integrated inner personality. You need a foundation where your thoughts, feelings, and actions are all aligned. Reaching inner peace is a 2-part process. It requires building a conscious gate to filter the world's poison while actively planting the nectar of good values to cultivate a thriving, quiet mind.